Aren't all religions the same? No. Welcome to Anthropology in 10 or Less. I'm Michael Kilman, and today we're going to explore categories of religion. But why should we classify them? A lot of people believe all religions are basically saying the same thing, but from an anthropological perspective, that's just not true. This claim of universal truth is sometimes known as perennialism. Perennialism is the idea that all religions are different paths to the same ultimate truth. The problem? It's wrong. But more on that later. In part 1 of this series on religion, we discussed how difficult it is to define religion. Religion is something that defies categorization in part because it's a lived experience of people. I don't know about you, but growing up in the Catholic Church, it often seemed that interpretations varied widely on the meaning of what it meant to be a Christian, and that's just one religion. Historically, anthropologists broke down religion to a variety of categories, and while many of us no longer use these distinctions, it can be a useful starting point. Some of these included anamatism, animism, theism, deism, and ancestor worship. Anthropologists use concepts like anamatism to describe a belief in impersonal forces like mana or chi. Impersonable force, you say? Like the Force? George Lucas was definitely drawing on both Eastern philosophy and the Polynesian concept of mana for Star Wars. And certainly, Magic the Gathering, World of Warcraft, and a whole host of other places have really run with his concept. If you're interested in this topic, check out the article The History of Mana, How an Austronesian Concept Became a Video Game Mechanic. Link below. Anthropologists use animism to describe cultures that appear to worship nature as if it were intelligent and had a soul. As Justine Quijada writes in the Sapiens article, Do Mountains Have Souls? Quote, Animism is not a religion or even a set of beliefs about nature having a soul. It's a term used by scholars to classify religious practices through which human beings cultivate relationships with more powerful beings that reside in the world around us. Then we have theism. There's the polytheistic types with multiple gods, and there's the monotheistic type with one god. Deism is the idea that there's a creator, but really, as Tom Waits puts it, God's away on business. Yes, that's a picture of Cookie Monster. Yes, someone here on YouTube mashed up Tom Waits and Cookie Monster because they sound shockingly similar. And yes, for a laugh, you should absolutely watch the video. There's also ancestor veneration, where cultures relate to their ancestors in a variety of ways. Most cultures have some type of ancestor worship, even if it's just famous historical figures. There's also contemplative practices like Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism that don't easily fit into the above categories. Some of these groups are agnostic, others could be considered ancestor worship or even theistic. But that's the problem. These classic categories break down when we look closer, because culture and people don't fit neatly into boxes. People hold complex and contradictory beliefs in their heads all the time. What it means to be a Christian or a pagan or a Buddhist varies depending on not just the cultures that hold the ideas, but the experience of your own individual lives. There are some categories that are pretty useful though. Remember from episode 1 when we talked about how it's better to look at what religions do or how they function than it is to try to define them? You see, there's one misconception about religion that people often make. That's the difference between a world religion and a local religion. When you think of religion, you're probably thinking of one of the big ones like Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, or one of the several others. Approaching religion from that angle may lead you to believe that there's only really a dozen or so religions. But most of the world's spiritual traditions are what we might classify as local religions. In a book by Jack David Eller, Introducing the Anthropology of Religion, he gives us some solid, clear-cut categories for defining the differences between a world religion and a local one, 4 of which I'll list here. 1. A world religion has texts frozen in time. Have any of you out there ever played the game Telephone as a kid, or even as a party game? Well, without written text, we're depending on people passing reliable information over great distances, languages, and cultures. As it is, there's a huge problem with the translation and interpretation across cultures and religion. Think of the conflict between Sunni and Shia Muslims, or Catholics and Protestants. So imagine if there wasn't even a consistent text to draw on. So the first condition for something to transition from a local religion to a world religion is that it must be written down. The second condition is that a world religion cannot be based on something local. Many local religions have a sacred grove, a sacred rock, or some sort of location in time and space that might be cared for or visited on a regular basis. Sacred places anchor local religions in specific landscapes and communities. Think of Native American sacred spaces like Bear Lodge or Matu Tupila, known by most Anglo-Americans as Devil's Tower. Over 20 tribes have historical ties to this spot and practice rituals and ceremonies as part of their spiritual traditions there, which is why there is a long-standing conflict with rock climbers over that sacred space. I've linked an article below for more. A world religion cannot require you to visit somewhere specific on a regular basis. Now, I know what you might be thinking. What about the pilgrimage to Mecca in Islam? Well, while a pilgrimage is a pillar of Islam, it's not an absolute requirement. Islam says you should only go on a pilgrimage if you are physically and financially able. It's considered a marker of the devout to go, but the only requirement is that you pray in the direction of Mecca, not actually go to it. This practice allows Muslims the flexibility to practice anywhere, even in space. Check out this article on how Muslim scholars helped astronauts figure out what direction to pray in as they orbit the Earth. Third, a world religion has a claim of universality, or a supreme being that is applicable to all. There is, in reality, no such thing as a universal religion. If there was, by definition, not only would we all convert to it because it made so much sense, but also it would arise independently all over the world regardless of culture. That doesn't happen. Saying that concepts in Christianity or Buddhism, for example, are universally applicable is nonsense. Not every culture and human being will understand those concepts or even be interested in them. But in order for something to be a world religion, the claim of universality must be there. After all, it's not much of a world religion if you tell people that they can't be a part of it because they're different than you. Fourth, a world religion spreads either from diaspora, like the Jewish or African diaspora, or by conversion. Local-based religions do not seek converts. In fact, most local-based religions either don't have a concept of conversion or think that the idea that you can convert is ludicrous. It's only the world religions that really have this concept of spiritual choice, or a subscription model. Speaking of which, if you made it this far, you should like and subscribe to my channel. Local religions often simply consider their religion as a part of their identity. You are born Kayapo along the Amazon, and so naturally you practice the Kayapo spiritual system. Because, well, what else makes sense? Local religions don't make distinctions between the spiritual and the secular in the same way people born into world religions do. In reality, because culture is holistic, swapping religions will have major impacts on your life and certainly the life of your culture. It's also why missionization has proven to be so destructive. Want an example? Check out the article Christianizing Language and Displacement of Culture in Bosavi, Papua New Guinea, or the documentary on Native American boarding schools called Our Spirits Don't Speak English. So when we think of world versus local religion, consider the wider structure of society and these four major elements. One important thing to consider is that religion is a reflection of the society it lives in. For example, there is no known evidence of a world religion developing outside of empire or agriculture. There seems to be something about the formation of empire and the shift from local to world religion that coincides. This suggests that large-scale religious systems and large-scale political systems evolve together. By the way, if you do find contrary evidence, please post some in the comments. I would absolutely love to see a world religion that fits the above four categories that wasn't born in a state or empire. A lot of what world religion is appears to be about the scale of ideology and its ability to spread power similar to what's happening on a political and economic level in culture. Remember, cultures are holistic, and one area of culture is going to influence other areas of culture. Why does this distinction matter? Well, understanding the difference between local and world religions also helps explain modern conflicts, globalization, and why religious identity is so often tied to power, politics, and even violence. Back to that opening statement that not all religions are the same. This doesn't mean that one religion is better than another. Quite the contrary. Different religions are trying to cultivate different kinds of individuals and communities. Like the rest of distinct cultures and language, they have a unique perspective on the world. It's not a case of better or worse, it's just a case of different. And remember, from our episode on diversity, that diversity is really a strength and not a weakness. That's all for this episode of Anthropology in 10 or Less. If you like my channel and are interested in anthropology, building fictional worlds using real social science, or curious about my fiction, considering heading over to my Substack, where paid subscribers can even ask monthly questions in my anthropological office hours. See you next time!